On this edition of Independent Sources, Moving on Faith, an all-black order of nuns celebrates a milestone but suffers from dwindling membership. And Art Attack, what's prompting the boom and interest in African contemporary art? Those stories and more coming up. Welcome to Independent Sources, bringing you news from New York's ethnic and immigrant communities. I'm Gary Pierre. The Franciscan Handmaids of the Most Pure Heart of Mary is an all-black order of nuns that was born out of the Deep South's racist practices. The order overcame those grisly beginnings and recently celebrated its centennial with a who's who of New Yorkers that lauded the handmaids' good work throughout the city. Despite the event's pomp and ceremony, Abby Ishola reports that the nuns are struggling to ensure the order still has a future.
Sister Loretta Teresa Richards. Sister Maria Goretti Mannix.
For the Franciscan Handmaids of the Most Pure Heart of Mary, this isn't just any tribute. It is their centennial celebration.
Thank you to everyone who have come to help us recognize this milestone in our history.
Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine.
That history is a century-old sisterhood born in the Deep South that now dwells inside this Harlem convent. These holy women, young and old, represent and uphold that history.
I'm Sister Loretta Teresa of the Congregation of the Franciscan Handmaids of the Most Pure Heart of Mary. I entered October the 31st, 1948.
I'm Sister Maria Goretti Mannix. I've been in the congregation since 1950.
When this convent was dedicated, I was in front of Marcus Garvey Park, and I didn't know very many of the sisters. And at that time, at the dedication, Sister Goretti was in the band that played for the dedication.
That's right. In those days, they had the long stoops, so we sat on the stoops and did our little presentation. It was a very exciting time, yes.
The congregation's founders were Father Ignatius Lisner, a white man who led missions in Africa, and Elizabeth Williams, a black nun from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The year was 1916 in Savannah, Georgia. A bill banning white religious leaders from providing pastoral services and educating black people had been proposed. Father Ignatius decided to form a group of black nuns to protect the schools he co-founded from being closed down. He called on Williams to lead the group.
People did not believe that black people could be nuns. And that training used to be longer if we join other communities, longer than the usual training, because we are not capable. People don't believe that we can serve God and we could be called. But being a nun is a vocation. We are privileged to be called by our Almighty God to serve His people. We are like prophets, disciples. So here you are looking at black prophets, black disciples, and black nuns.
By 1923, the Franciscan Handmaids were faced with economic troubles in the South. Cardinal Patrick Hayes invited them to Harlem to run the St. Benedict's Nursery School as a way to assist poor working mothers in the growing African-American neighborhood. To this day, that kindness remains at the school, where they offer scholarships to students in need. They also have a food pantry in Staten Island, where they provide goods for the less fortunate.
We are asking all people that the Franciscan Handmaids of Mary have touched, all that have been in contact with us, all that you have enriched and empowered, to go out there to offer acts of kindness in memory of us.
Their good work has not gone unnoticed. The community's admiration for them was on full display at their recent centennial celebration. Several prominent New Yorkers came out to honor them.
And I was an altar boy. And between the incense and the Latin, it was a strange experience. But thank God for the handmaids of Mary.
To see you that represent pure service, that don't look for attention, that don't look for publicity, but just serve.
It's been a long road to get to this point, and it hasn't come without obstacles. The most recent challenge they faced is finding women to replenish their ranks. The congregation has gone from 80 sisters during its prime to less than 20 nuns currently in New York.
Well, of course, it's difficult to see that, but we realize that, well, we do what we can do while we're here and just continue to pray and support new sisters as they come.
We had this meeting to talk about how we could go about calling young people, talk with them and see if they are interested. Because, you know, religious life is not an option for young people today because they have a lot of options out there. But religious life is just not something they're thinking about.
When they couldn't find willing women locally, they took their search overseas, Nigeria to be exact. There they set up a mission house in 2014.
I started here in Nigeria in 2014, and I moved down here 2015, January. I'm happy that I'm here because I really desire to serve my God out of my homeland, to work, serve people, especially those that are discriminated upon, and that is exactly what the mission statement of this congregation is.
Before I joined this congregation, the Handmaids of the Most Pure Heart of Mary, I had applied to join another congregation which was all white, and they would not accept me. They said they were not ready to start receiving Africans in their congregation. So, and it is actually one of those sisters that put me in touch with this congregation because I told her, you know, I want to join a congregation that accepts Black people or Black sisters. I would like to see that we grow in number and flourish, and we'll be able to open up new ministries for our congregation, especially taking care of the poor, because we're Marian and Franciscans. And Franciscan spirituality tells us to go further, work with the poor, help the poor.
And so we thank you, we love you, we praise you. Tonight was a magnificent tribute.
Abby Ashola for Independent Sources.
When we come back, contemporary African art, a hot commodity. Before that, Crystal Lowe has some other news.
Thanks, Gary. Here's a look at some headlines from New York's ethnic and community media. The Korea Society has come under fire after allegations of discrimination. The Korea Times reports that the former vice president of the Korea Society, Sophia H. Kang, submitted a petition to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, alleging that the organization deprived her of a promotion opportunity on the basis of her ethnicity and gender. According to the petition, the issue arose last July when Thomas J. Byrne became the president of the organization. Kang alleges that Byrne promoted a number of white male employees lacking experience to run the organization under his control. Kang, a Korean woman who has been with the organization for over 20 years, points out that the essential positions, such as president and senior director, are held by white men, and Korean employees are excluded from opportunities of advancement. In other news, Queens Latino reports that questions regarding the expansion of the 82nd Street Business Improvement District on Roosevelt Avenue continue to go unanswered. The steering committee has yet to collect the necessary signature for the bid's approval. In addition, the committee has failed to convene town hall meetings to discuss the bid, as the law requires. The district's expansion on Roosevelt Avenue has been the focus of many debates and community meetings since it was proposed by Democratic Council member Jalissa Ferreras in June 2013. Community members and organizations oppose the expansion because they believe it will displace small businesses and dilute the neighborhood's identity in favor of big corporations and gentrification. El Diario La Prensa highlights New York City's farming initiatives, programs designed to cultivate and expand the city's relationship with the state's farming industry. Grow NYC is a New York City sustainability initiative designed to improve the quality of life for New Yorkers through green markets, recycling, community gardens, and environmental education. The organization has been instrumental in the expansion of several small businesses. In addition to the business opportunities presented by Grow NYC, entrepreneurs can also receive training through the new farmer development projects, La Nueva Siembra, a business course that helps farmers design their business and marketing plans. New York City's Housing Authority is offering NYCHA residents the chance to launch and expand their entrepreneurship skills through a new program called Food Business Pathways, a 10-week intensive business course where participants are challenged to formalize their own businesses by obtaining free licenses, permits, and utilizing a free incubator space. The Brooklyn Daily takes a look at the program through the eyes of Jamaican-born Brooklynite Lancelot Brown, a Canarsie chef who recently took advantage of the course by opening his own restaurant. Thanks to the resources and skills provided by the new program, Brown not only learned how to run a business, he was also able to receive help securing the permits needed to open his island grill. And finally, as the annual National Puerto Rican Day Parade approaches, organizers, public officials, and participants are reflecting on the significance of this year's message and the inclusion of the LGBT community. Puerto Rico adopted same-sex marriage after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor of it in 2015. However, El Diario La Prensa reports that the LGBT community in the U.S. and on the island still face numerous challenges. In fact, 40% of all homeless youth living in Puerto Rico belong to the LGBT community. Activists attribute these numbers to society's exclusion of the community due to its lack of understanding and/or appreciation of the group's differences. Organizers want to use this year's parade as an opportunity to embrace the LGBT community. This year's themes will be family unity, marriage equality, and LGBT rights. The 59th Annual National Puerto Rican Day Parade will be held on Sunday, June 12th. Those were just a few headlines from the city's ethnic and community media. Independent sources will be right back.
Thanks for staying tuned. African contemporary art is becoming a hot commodity as young artists are reframing the sector in a more modern light. Gone are the outmoded ivory masks and wooden sculptures. Now, these artists are using mixed media and even metals. Abby Ishola spoke to William Karg, the director of the Contemporary African Art Gallery on the Upper West Side, and the Ghanaian artist Tafa, about how the sector is changing.
Bill Karg and Tafa, thanks for being with us.
You're welcome. Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Bill, I'll start with you. Can you explain to us what the difference is between contemporary African art and traditional African art?
Contemporary African art is really as we think of contemporary art, and it has many varieties. It can be painting, it can be stone sculpture, it can be wood sculpture, it can be installations. Usually, traditional African art is carries out a tradition. It might be religious in connotation, it might have other important meanings to a community, but it oftentimes is, because of that tradition, very old. And antiquity. I generally talk about that as traditional African art as an antiquity, as opposed to contemporary African art, which is an artist really performing actually a service to his or her community by creating something that's commenting upon that community at this time.
And what are some of the kinds of materials artists are using now as opposed to in the past?
Well, the show just last week at Pioneer Works, the 154 Art Fair, had videos, had quite a bit of photography. It had some installations, and probably the most surprising was a huge work that was so perfectly done of a person's face You saw every gray in his gray beard, and it was a painting. It wasn't a photograph. So artists go to great lengths to, in fact, execute their trade. Some of them are formally trained, some of them are not. It's never made a big difference to me, but they are very serious about their work.
And Tafa, as an artist yourself, can you say this movement, some people are calling it a movement, is this something that was consciously done by artists, or did it just happen? Is it the way that things are just moving?
Well, I think it's been a very slow evolution, right? Because when artists in Africa, got exposed to what was happening in the rest of the world, it also influenced what they were doing, So the revolution has come about as a result of African artists actually looking to express themselves in different ways, in ways that was different from what their ancestors were doing. Like you take, there is this guy in Ghana, in Accra, who does these incredibly beautiful coffins. Some of them are in the shape of eagles, cars, and stuff like that. And you look at that, and it's contemporary, right? And you wonder, like, how did this come about? Because I guess someone died, and he was like, instead of using the traditional coffin that has been, used, for millennia, it's like, why don't I do the coffin in the shape of an eagle? Because it represented the guy, his stature in society, so he made a coffin in the shape of an eagle. And today, many other people are doing different varieties of the same thing. So that's one example of how the traditional morphs into the contemporary.
Okay. So what would you say is pushing this? Is it social media? Everyone's always talking about social media being the new wave of everything. Would you say that that's helping?
It's helping, but I don't think that's because in Ghana, before social media and the rest of Africa, African artists have been experimenting with stuff for the longest time. Social media is helping, right? Today, someone makes a painting or makes a sculpture, and the next few seconds is on Facebook, is on Instagram, So that's also helping artists to see what's happening around the world, also helping them to express themselves and make their works known to the rest of the world. So that's a contributing factor, but that's not the only factor.
Okay. And I'll pose this question to both of you. Who is buying this kind of art? Who wants a coffin in the shape of an eagle?
Well, it's interesting you raise the issue of social media, because I think for its beginning years, say with Facebook, people who were directing and running galleries pretty much dismissed that as kids who were too young or having not enough money to buy serious art. That's changing now. And Tafa is absolutely right that this, in fact, is a great way to spread the word, to let people know what you're doing, how you've changed perhaps as an artist. And it's becoming a major marketing tool. And these kids have grown up. And they now have money to buy. So we're seeing a beginning of an interest in a younger generation than heretofore would have been interested in contemporary African art.
And who's buying your art?
Some artists do just large work, or mostly large work. But I do like 8 by 10s, right? And then I do like 8 feet by 8 feet work, So almost everybody can find a way of acquiring my work. The first time I did work, it wasn't, when I first got to New York, I was doing really medium-sized work. And I didn't know how to survive as an artist. I was wondering, like, how am I going to sell this? Because I just came, people asked me, what do you want to do in New York? I want to be an artist. Do you know anybody from Ghana who's an artist in New York? No, I didn't know anybody. Wow. So I had a show in Grace Baptist Church in Mount Vernon, and Mayor Dinkins was there. and he bought one of my works. And I was like, wow. You know, it was such a boost of inspiration and energy and encouragement. And I'm like, wow, so if he can buy my work, probably other people will like my work too. So that gave me, you know, the boost, the confidence, and I just kept moving. So I've had people buy my work who are not really like avid collectors or, you know, wealthy, you know, regular people buy my work. And I've also had other people who have some means.
And Tafa, how can people see your work?
TafaTafa.com.
Wonderful. Tafa and Bill Clark, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Coming up, the unsung heroines of Puerto Rico's revolution. Finally from us, our On the Shelf segment. This week, I speak with Dr. Olga Jimenez Wagenheim, the author of Nationalist Heroines, a book about some of Puerto Rico's little-known female heroes who were involved in the country's independence movement. Dr. Olga Jimenez Wagenheim, so tell us about these women. Who were they and why did they get involved in these uprisings?
Well, these were women who were interested in independence for Puerto Rico. And they have a long history because there was an independence movement in Puerto Rico in the 19th century, and that became kind of the genesis for the independence movement against the United States in the 1900s. Mm-hmm. So they had a very fiery leader called Pedro Albizu Campos, and he's a graduate student from Harvard, a law, brilliant man. And he decided that Puerto Rico should be independent. The question is, how is it going to be independent? At first, he tried to go through the United Nations after the United Nations were created after World War II, and thought that maybe the United Nations would help Puerto Rico become independent in a peaceful way. Mm-hmm. That didn't happen. So then he became radical, and he said, well, the only way to become independent is to actually have a revolution. Mm-hmm. And so these women were part of that movement that was, actually the movement was started in 1922, but it was interested in elections. By 1930, he realized that elections were not going to do it, that he said the system was rigged.
It sounds familiar. Huh?
Okay, so then what he did is he started talking about arms are necessary. And these women were part of that movement. They believed what he believed. Mm-hmm. So it's a long story,
sure,
but I mean, just in a nutshell.
Yeah, the book is this thick, so we have 8 minutes or so to talk about it. But anyway, give us a sense, what did they do during the uprising? I mean, did they fight along the men, or what exactly was their role?
It depends. There were different women arrested at different times. Blanca Canales, who was the one who led the revolution in the town of Jayuya, she actually took up a gun and she went to Jayuya with a whole group of people, and she was going to first liberate the town and declare Puerto Rico a republic. She was sentenced to life for that. Mm-hmm. Eventually she won her freedom, but that's another story. The other woman who's really well known is Lolita Lebron, who's on the cover of this book.
She's right there being escorted by the police.
Exactly. She was living in New York City since 1940, so she didn't participate in the uprising of 1950, but she believed in the cause. So in 1954, after Puerto Rico was ratified as a Commonwealth of Puerto Rico in 1953 by the United Nations, she decided that that was just another form of colonialism. Mm-hmm. And inspired by her leader, she went to Washington with 3 other men, 3 nationalists from New York, and she shot at the Congress. They went to the House of Representatives, a visitors gallery, and started shooting. And 5 congressmen were injured. So those are the two women that I would say that actually led any part of the struggle. The others were participants in the struggle. For example, Doris Torresola, who is also from the town of Jayuya and a cousin of Blanca Canales. She was living in San Juan, in Old San Juan, when they came to arrest Pedro Albizu Campos in 1950, and she went to see who was calling, yelling his name. She was very upset. Shot her in the throat, ended up in the hospital. Then in 1954, she was gassed with a whole bunch of others who were also defending Pedro Albizu Campos. So there are different
role that they played.
They played at different times.
You said in the book, in the introduction, that these stories, the story of these women, remain largely obscure and untold. Why was that?
I'm not sure that I know the reasons why it wasn't so, but you know, historians have their own reasons for going to look for a particular topic. Some of these women were written about in newspaper articles, and it's usually the same kind of story being retold. And I felt that there were 41 women detained, and some of them had never been talked about. So I decided, let me see which of these women actually participated and were the sentences that they were given really fair sentences. And I found that 15 of the 41, because I cover 16 here,
okay,
because one of them was not arrested because she had left for Mexico. And she has a really interesting story because she actually rescued a flag in 1937.
Who was that?
That was Dominga de la Cruz.
Okay, she was an Afro.
Yes, yes. There were two Afro-Puerto Rican women. One was Dominga de la Cruz, and the other was Rosa Mills.
Okay.
And each one of them has a great, great story. So
tell us a little bit about Dominga de la Cruz.
Dominga de la Cruz is her story is just fascinating because she was a very, very poor woman from the Playa de Ponce, which is a very poor area of a city, Puerto Rico. I think she had like a third grade education, and she got married, had two daughters. The husband walked out, one of those things. And her two daughters died of starvation because it's the Depression time. And so Depression hit the United States badly. It nearly
destroyed
Puerto Rico. And she was one of the victims. So after her daughters died, she was completely distraught and said she was looking for something, and she couldn't name what it was. And then Pedro Albizu Campos came into her life because she read a story about him leading some sort of a demonstration in 1932. Then she made it a point to go meet him. Well, anyway, she goes, meets Pedro Albizu Campos, becomes totally devoted to him. And in 1937, Pedro Albizu Campos was arrested, and there was going to be a demonstration in Ponce. She goes to the demonstration. She's a young woman, and the police opened fire on all of these unarmed people. So it's called the Ponce Massacre. She runs out of a place of safety to actually rescue the flag because Don Pedro had said, never should the flag touch the ground.
Wow, that was a great story.
It's a great story.
Yeah, I was really fascinated by her story when I read the book, so I just wanted us to talk a little bit about it.
Yes.
But unfortunately, we're out of time. Dr. Olga Jimenez Wagenheim, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
The book, Nationalist Heroines, is now available online and in bookstores. That's our show this week. Thanks for staying tuned. Till next time, be independent-minded.